Okay, the records are now open. Okay. Well, you're not a soul that's originated from this galaxy. Okay. I do pick up origination was probably at some time from another universe. Okay. This was billions of years ago. Okay. Somehow, though, when the experiment into physicality ended, okay, in that universe, you were kind of an activator to start it in this universe. So you're part of a specialized group that came in to activate the whole evolutionary process in this universe. Okay. I do see that you spent quite a bit of time in Andromeda Galaxy, so that's where we're going to start your story. Okay.
Resonate with them.
Yeah. So Andromeda Galaxy. It's a beautiful galaxy. I mean, it's quite sparkly. And usually, when I connect with people that have Andromeda Galaxy origination or connections, they have a very sparkly aura. And I know that sounds kind of goofy talking about that with a guy, but you do have a sparkly aura, okay? So it's usually indicative of a lot of time spent in Andromeda Galaxy.
Right. It's a feminine galaxy.
Yeah, it's very feminine, yeah. Pretty much most of the beings that lived in Andromeda Galaxy were ethereal elemental beings. Let's see, you're a Pisces, right, in this life?
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay. Pisces carries a lot of elemental qualities. Mostly water, but also I think elements of air. I do see kind of air elemental with you. Okay. Basically what I'm seeing is during your lifetimes in Andromeda Galaxy, you were a co-creator. You helped to develop stars and nebulas, maybe some gaseous forms. You worked with color and frequency. Most Andromeda Galaxy souls are frequency workers. You guys work with frequency. You're kind of beyond energy. It's frequency. Okay. I'm trying to see if there's anything particular that kind of stood out about Andromeda Galaxy. You had, I think, some connection with some of the councils in that galaxy, but they weren't set up like councils here in this galaxy. So in this galaxy, things are very, very structured, okay, because we have more of a divine masculine essence, I think, overall. However, I think in Andromeda Galaxy, it was kind of like there was no particular place where you met. It was just kind of like these souls would get together. They would, I think, discuss things on more of a frequency basis. I don't even think it was beyond language. Okay. And so sometimes I get some Andromeda Galaxy souls that feel more comfortable speaking in light language than they do, spoken word, because they like to channel in those higher frequencies. Okay. And I don't know if you're a light language speaker, but you might.
I've done it a couple times. I hang out with a group of people who are really good.
Oh, okay.
I'm slowly picking it up.
Yeah. I think it's going to become a bigger thing for you as time goes on. So I think there was a decision that was made during one of these council meetings that there was a new galaxy that needed to be created because Andromeda Galaxy was not, I think, it was too high vibrational to support physical life. And it was And so there needed to be, I think, this experiment into, like what I call the descent into physicality to start occurring. And this is my first time actually seeing this, so I always kind of learn along with you guys when I do these readings. But so I'm learning along, sometimes the records just show me new stuff, and I'm like, oh, cool, I'm seeing the deeper level of this story. But so there was a decision that was made that there was going to be a new galaxy that was formed, and this was going to be the biggest project that the Andromeda Galaxy souls have ever done. Okay, and it was a huge project. So half of the Andromeda Galaxy soul group decided that they were going to stay with Andromeda Galaxy to stabilize the galaxy while this separation was occurring. The rest of the group decided they were going to follow the new galaxy and help support it in its evolution. So you were part of that second group. Okay, so I think it was just a matter of like half the council decided, you know what, us and our tribe, we're gonna just stay here. And then the rest of you guys said, you know what, we want to have the new adventure, or I've done this before, I'm going to go ahead and go with the new galaxy. So you were part of that second group, okay? Initially, I think as the new galaxy was being formed, there was a portal that was created between the two galaxies. Because even though Andromeda Galaxy is the closest galaxy to Milky Way, it's still 2 million light years away. So it's not very close, okay? Take us forever to travel that far. So there had to be a portal created, and this portal was called Antares. It was located in the star of Antares, which is in the Scorpio constellation. Okay, that was the first Stargate.
Did my group help create that
Stargate?
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah. There were higher dimensional Antarian beings that I think decided to stay behind and maintain the Stargate. And when you see these beings, they look kind of like insects. They look like big praying mantis looking things.
Mantis, yes, I've seen them.
Yeah, they're quite benevolent though. They're not.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, they're not, they're not the insectoids that are in the Orion system. Okay, so
Some people call them the founders.
Yeah, the founders. Yeah. So these beings were, I think, the original co-creators in this galaxy. Okay, but their main purpose was gatekeepers. Okay, they were not meant to start the evolution into physical life. That was done by the Elohim, or also known as the co-creators. Your group helped to support what the Elohim were doing. So the Elohim created new life. Okay, so they created physical life and they chose planets in the Lyra system because they were most inhabitable for physical life. And that's true even today. Today they have, most of the Kepler planets are in Lyra. I just saw this in a scientific article. I was shocked. I was just like, holy crap, the Akashic records were right. Okay. So there was a reason why they chose Lyra. Your group helped to support the frequencies needed to maintain this physical life. And then I think after a while, as the planets got more stabilized, your soul group decided that they were going to incarnate as physical beings in this system. So this was your first time, I think, incarnating into a physical form. Okay, because before that you were always this kind of etheric, elemental, ethereal kind of soul. Okay. Now they did have avian beings in Lyra. A lot of people don't know that. A lot of people focus on the cats. It's like, oh yeah, we got cat people in Lyra, but they also had avian beings in Lyra. Okay. Not talked about as much, but a lot of the Andromeda Galaxy souls chose to incarnate more in the avian or elemental forms. you chose Avian. Okay, and I think it was because their soul frequency was more aligned with that body type. Okay, so you probably had a humanoid-looking body with, I don't know, a bird head or wings.
That's what I've seen in those sessions. Yes, I had like almost a human body with the head of a hawk or eagle.
Yeah, it looked like a bird head.
Yeah.
And you had wings.
Yep.
The cat people, I think they came originally from a different universe too. And when their soul group chose to incarnate in Lyra, they chose the cat form because that was similar to the form that they had in the previous universe. So a lot of cat and avian genetics, a lot of cat genetics, I think, birthed humanoid forms, and a lot of the avian genetics birthed either amphibian or reptilian forms. So there is kind of a genetic connection there, probably quite removed by now, but there's a reason why on Earth we had, these dinosaurs turning into birds. I mean, it was Lyra.
Oh, Lyra. Whoa, so we worked with the Elohim.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you worked with the Elohim. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So it was. Yeah. So that's why I say there's avian beings on Lyra too. So yeah, that's Lyra. So your first incarnation was in Lyra. First physical, but it was not as human. Okay. And that's more common than people would think. I get some Andromeda Galaxy souls that started their lives as elementals, as fairies. And it was, so they remember themselves as fairies, or they remember themselves, some people remember themselves in the cat form, so it, just depends on, what group you originated from. But, let's see. So that was, like I said, seemed like a piece of cake because there was nothing happening in Lyra. Okay. Now I do think the reptilians that were in Draco, okay, because they're part of the story, came in through a different universe. So they were kicked out of that original universe and they got kind of plopped into Draco, and they were pissed. Okay.
So I wasn't part of that avian group from a parallel. Okay, good.
No. That was.
Okay, good.
Yeah, that was a whole other other story. Whole other soul group. I've only met one person in all the years I've been doing readings that's actually from that original avian group from the different universe.
I saw the YouTube. But
that was really interesting. It was my first. That was another thing. It was the first time. I was like, oh wow, they were kicked out by the avian people in another universe. It's like that kind of makes sense actually. But your group, I think, took avian form because it was, I think, a bit better match for your frequency. Okay, so, and there were different avian groups that weren't related to each other, like the blue avians that, Corey Good talks about. I think that's more of an Andromedan group. I don't know. I haven't yet quite figured out where they're from, but one of these days I'll have to look deeper into that. But they're not part of the original Lyra avians. That's one thing I did pick up. But so the Draconians were pissed. They wanted to conquer their new environment. And they saw Lyra and thought, wow, that is just a little insignificant star system. We can easily conquer it. Okay. And they had the technology. Okay. I mean, they had billions of years to develop their technology. So they had technology beyond what we ever saw here in this galaxy. Now, at this time, the human form, the human beings, the humanoids were being developed. They were developing some technology, mostly in Vega and some of the other Lyran star systems. And although their technology was good, it wasn't a match for what the reptilians had. So when the reptilians decided to ambush Lyra and Vega, it was easy pickings for them. It was just like they demolished that star system. And kind of what I'm picking up with you during this time is you felt helpless to stop it. You felt like it was your duty to protect, okay, but you couldn't do anything. You didn't have the technology. You didn't have the ability to fight against Draconians with their big ass, Death Star ships. I mean, it just wasn't going to happen. So there was, I think, some residual guilt and anger around, and maybe disappointment around, I couldn't save Lyra. And not that you haven't worked out maybe some of those feelings. I mean, this was millions of years ago, but I do see it in your records. Okay. I do think, you just felt like you couldn't do anything. For as quick and as agile as the bird people were, they were not great fighters. Okay. They had some protective qualities, but it was mainly during peacetime. Okay, so to be involved with, I'm sorry.
I see myself as a peacekeeper anyway, even if this
yeah. And I don't think you had any desire to go face to face with a Draconian ship. It was not No. Yeah. So. All you could do was try to evacuate as many people as possible. So you were doing mostly search and rescue missions on the various planets, trying to get people to on board starships to evacuate them off the planets. That was the only thing that you could do. The planets themselves. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
They come back to Andromeda.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll talk about Andromeda.
Okay.
I think you kind of worked with all the planets, so you weren't assigned to any one planet. So you worked with Avian, you worked with Avalon, you worked with Bila, Merc, all the planets. Okay. I do think that you ended up, accompanying a ship that was headed towards Cassiopia. Okay, so your ship headed to Cassiopia.
Yeah, it's like on the other side of Andromeda.
Yeah, it's pretty far. Yeah, and it's the closest. I would say it's very close to Andromeda. It's the closest constellation to Andromeda. And Andromeda is the constellation is actually far. It's 2,000 light years away from Lyra, so it was very far. So once the ships headed from Lyra to Cassiopia, they were tired. They were probably on their last legs. It was kind of interesting because there were certain way stations that were set up by, I think, higher dimensional beings in certain star systems along the way, and Cygnus was one of them. Cygnus is the Swan constellation next door to Lyra, and Cassiopea was another one. And there may have been more. I think there were probably more, but those are the two that I see the most in people's readings. Cassiopea was kind of like a hologram. It wasn't really very inhabitable. It was just set up to be a temporary way station for weary Lyran refugees. So the higher dimensional beings that maintained that system looked like cat people. Okay, these were just like higher dimensional beings, maybe angelics, I don't know, that kind of pulled their energy into a cat person form. In Cygnus, they looked more like bird people, but not quite like the Avian that you're talking about. So you're talking about, these very, these they were kind of looked more like smaller birds. I don't know. It's kind of weird. I can't trying to describe it, but they didn't have the same look as the original Lyra avians. Okay. I think they just took on this image because it was familiar and but still set them apart from being let me see if I can describe this. From being mistaken for a human. Okay, they definitely didn't have human qualities. Same with the Cassiopeians. The Cassiopeians were a little bit more mysterious. They didn't talk much about their culture. They didn't talk much about their main focus was to be triage nurses, basically. They were there to help the refugees get back on their feet. And so you as this bird person, I think you kind of felt like, there's no place for me here in Cassiopia. I'm going to have to move on to Andromeda. And that's the constellation, not the galaxy. With Andromeda Galaxy, there was no going back to it. I think when your soul group decided that you were going to accompany the Milky Way, you knew this was a permanent decision. So there was no going back to Andromeda Galaxy. Maybe in the future there is, because the two galaxies are kind of merging closer and closer to each other. They're saying in 3 million years they're probably going to converge again. This is a scientific thing, not a metaphysical thing. So eventually you'll get to return home, but by then you might be involved with bigger projects. Who knows? You might even be beyond Andromeda Galaxy at that point. But yeah, Cassiopia was kind of a stopping point, and then most of your incarnations were in Andromeda, the constellation. Okay. I think as a bird person, I think at first, in an initial history of Andromeda, you had, I think you had a place as a bird being, okay? But I think as the technology grew and as Andromeda became more and more humanoid, you had to make a choice. It's like, do I go back to the etheric form and just continue to be a bird person, or do I incarnate as humanoid? And I think you chose to incarnate as humanoid because it was a new experience. And you thought, what the heck, might as well see what it's like to be, because you've worked so much with these humans that you thought, it was time for you to experience what it was like being in a human form. You've been in human form ever since, maybe higher dimensional in Andromeda, but you've kind of followed this thing all the way to Earth. I'm picking up that in Andromeda, once you became human, you worked less with frequency and more with technology. Are you a technological person in this lifetime?
Yeah, I work in IT, information systems.
Okay, that's a typical Andromeda career choice. Yeah, that I usually see mostly Andromedans and Pleiadians that gravitate towards IT. With Sirians, they're usually gravitating towards medicine or business because they're more practical people. But Andromeda, the constellation, their technology was beyond, I think, most other star systems. They evolved rapidly because they were so located. A lot of it was, I think, logistics, because they were located so far away that they were able to develop very rapidly without any interferences. So they didn't go through the wars or the conflicts or any of the other issues that maybe some of the other star systems went through. So now this doesn't mean that they didn't get involved with some big galactic projects. I think they did. Maybe towards more the latter part of their history, but initially they were just focused on creating the best technology they could. So a lot of Andromeda star seeds feel drawn to either science or technology. It's kind of like a fallback thing for them. It's maybe not their great love, but they kind of fall back on it. Okay. Kind of similar to Arcturians. We tend to fall back on science. And we would rather be healers and teachers, but if we're in the physical world, we'll do some sort of scientific work for a while because, hey, you can make a living at it, So Andromedans do the same thing. Trying to see, I do think eventually you got involved as a humanoid Andromedan. You were very tall. The one quality that you retained from your Andromeda lifetimes was your eye color. You have blue eyes, right?
Actually, hazel. But
Hazel.
They change from green to blue. So.
Yeah, no, they look. You had, I think, very stunning blue eyes in Andromeda. But I think in alternate incarnations, your eyes color would change. So maybe they were more green in the Pleiades, or maybe they were more hazel in Sirius. I don't know, but because I'm seeing you had incarnations in different systems after Andromeda. Okay. I think you got involved with the Galactic Federation, and I think as a very high-dimensional Andromedan, it was really hard for you to do one-on-one work with beings in other star systems. So you had to incarnate as those beings. Okay, so I'm seeing mostly Pleiades and Sirius. I don't see Orion. I don't think you incarnated in Orion because it was too low dimensional for you. Earth was the lowest dimensional place you've ever incarnated into. Okay. Eventually, I think your physical form changed as you incarnated into alternate systems. In the Pleiades, and I think eye color changed too. So I think the last system you were in before you came to Earth was Sirius. Okay.
Was I blue there, or?
Yeah, you were blue in Andromeda, and you were blue in Sirius.
Okay.
Pleiadians have more flesh tones. I don't know. They look very similar to Earth humans. They had different skin tones, though. A lot of people think of Pleiadians as being tall, blonde Nordics, and they're all these gorgeous blonde people. That can be further from the truth. Yeah, a lot of them did look like that, but they had a lot of variety in the Pleiades. So they had dark-haired Pleiadians, they had darker-skinned Pleiadians. I mean, they had, probably as much variety in the Pleiades as they had here on Earth, So Sirians were not as tall as Pleiadians and Andromedans, but they were maybe pretty tall. They were like 8 feet. I mean, they were fairly tall. They just weren't as tall. And they had bluish skin. They looked human otherwise. They tend to have darker eyes. And Pleiadians tend to have blue or green eyes. But it's interesting that your eye color, because I kept looking at your eyes, I was like, boy, sometimes they look blue, sometimes they look green. I don't know. It's like, yeah, you have these really changeable, beautiful Pisces eyes, I guess. Pisces, they have very changeable eyes. But I think you spent some time in the Pleiades and Taygeta and Alcyon. Those are the two star systems you were most associated with in the Pleiades. Okay. Taygeta, you did mostly Galactic Federation work. It was just kind of a continuation of what you started in Andromeda. It was I think it was a teaching or exchange program where the Andromedans were coming to the Pleiades in order to help teach the Pleiadians about spirituality and how to integrate that with their technology. So that's what you were involved with in Taygeta. Alcyon was a little bit different. Alcyon was more musically oriented. It was it was kind of like the seat of Pleiadian civilization. So a lot of things were going on in Alcyon. I'm seeing you doing mostly kind of Pleiadian council work with. You were like an advisor to some of the council members. So you would do massive research on certain, or sometimes even travel to other star systems to do massive research and do presentations. So you were mostly a researcher and an advisor. Okay. After that lifetime, I think you had a few lifetimes in Taygeta and Alcyon. And then after Alcyon, you decided to incarnate in Sirius. Sirius was already very divine femininely oriented. So you didn't really need to do much work with spirituality in Sirius because they were already pretty spiritual, but where they struggled with was integrating technology because they were highly spiritual, but their technology lagged behind. Okay, so you were assisting them with some technological advances, and I think because Sirius had very watery planets, I think you kind of have like an air-water essence to your soul. Okay, I think your core essence is air, but I think you took on water essence from Sirius because Sirian planets were extremely watery. And so I think, because I see a lot of people that have Sirian lives that end up incarnating into water signs. That would be Cancer, Pisces or Scorpio. It's not like across the board. I mean, it's not like every Scorpio was a Sirian but it's just it's just a trend I'm seeing. But Sirius was probably the most physical planet that you've ever, or most physical star system you've ever been on. Okay, besides Earth. Okay. Sirians they were mother goddess consciousness people, so they were very practical. So they understood how to navigate themselves in a very practical world. And because of that, I think a lot of Sirians gravitate towards healing because they understand physical healing better than Pleiadians or Andromedans do. Okay. Pleiadians heal on a very emotional level. Andromedans heal on a frequency level. Okay. Is any of this making sense so far, or am I?
No, it is. It does, because I do resonate with a lot of healing because actually I'm a cusp in Pisces, Aquarius.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's where I'm picking up the air and the water with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm actually like two different people. Like when I'm at work, I'm this, and when off, I'm the seeker.
Mm-hmm.
Who see shamans.
So when you're at work, you're your Aquarius self, and when you're at home, you're your Pisces self.
The Pisces self.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah. Yeah, I do see that air water quality with you. It's just very, you're very changeable. It's and it's part of your elemental, I think, Andromeda Galaxy soul influence.
Now, what type of elemental was I?
Air mostly.
Okay.
I mean, that's why you took on the bird form.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
You one with the air.
Yeah, you wanted to fly. You didn't want to be tied down. So you took on bird form for various lifetimes until it was no longer practical for you to do that. And then you had to make a choice to incarnate as human. But I think even your personality is kind of elemental. You're kind of like, you kind of flow into things. Maybe not at work because you're not supposed to, but you kind of take on more the structure of Aquarius. But when you're probably off work, you're probably like a whole different person, you know. So now, are you married? Do you have a family or?
Yes, I'm married. I don't have any kids, but I have 3 cats.
Nice. Okay. Kind of like our household. My husband has kids, but they're all adults. So and they're all out of the house. So we have 1 cat, and she's enough family. She's like having 5 cats in one. So so is your wife into all this kind of thing too?
Yes, actually, she's going to have a session with you a week from Saturday. I gave it to her for her birthday.
Oh, nice. Okay. Well, that's exciting. So we can see how you two interplay with each other. Yeah.
Well, that was the best. That actually changed my life because she was actually introduced to more people that were more involved in their spirituality. Because I was coming from a place that I had to figure it on my own.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have like mentors and stuff.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So it worked out well.
Yeah. And I think with your Syrian lives, you did go through the Syrian mystery schools, and that's what got you interested in working with Earth. Because a lot of your teachers were ascended masters, and you were noticing that they were always incarnating on Earth in various incarnations, and then they would come back and teach on Sirius. So some of your mentors were these great ascended masters, and you thought, you know what, I'm going to see what this Earth thing is all about, and that's why you're here. Okay, so.
Now, would I know any of those names of those ascended masters?
I'm picking up Sanat Kumara.
Oh, Kumara, yes.
Yeah. And Saint Germain.
Saint Germain.
Mm-hmm. Let me see who else. El Moira.
El Moira, yes.
Okay, and Cthulhu is, I think, another one.
Cthulhu, yes, I know.
Mm-hmm. So you had the big masters.
Yes.
Yeah. So these individuals had big influence on you as far as you getting involved with Earth. Okay. Because they had incarnations on Earth, and you thought, wow, that's a wonderful way to be of service. Because before, you were always helping star systems that had very evolved souls. I mean, you were just helping them tweak their society a little bit, but it was, very easy. Because they knew why you were there, they knew what you were doing. They were, very easy to work with. But Earth was going to be a challenge. Because you got very ignorant people on Earth that have no clue what's going on. Okay, and they tend to persecute those that have higher messages. At least that's been, the experience with some of these ascended masters. So you knew you had your work cut out for you. Okay, I do see more of an Atlantis initial incarnation with you. I think you wanted to incarnate in Lemuria because it was more of an Andromedan culture, but I think you felt like you would have the most impact in Atlantis. And so you chose to incarnate in Atlantis. And I'm sure you're probably familiar with Edgar Cayce. He talks about how a lot of Atlantean souls are now incarnated again in the United States, because the United States is the new Atlantis, and we're supposed to work out our karma in the new Atlantis. Try to not repeat the same mistakes we made in Atlantis. What I'm seeing in Atlantis is that you were a scientist, and I think you were trying to. I'm seeing environmental for some reason. Like you were trying to really preserve the environment. And so this was a little bit different than work you've done before, where you were always kind of either teaching spirituality or technology. You definitely were working with technology. I mean, you were a scientist, but you were using it, I think, to support the natural elements of the planet. Okay, so, and I think in that way you felt like, well, at least, I can probably help steer Atlantis towards the right direction. That didn't happen, so you kind of felt like it was kind of like another failure like Lyra was. Like, I tried and it didn't quite happen. Atlantis got destroyed, and then everything, went to crap after that. Okay. I do see Egyptian life. Okay, so we got Atlantis, Egypt. Now I do think your wife. Okay, I think you initially. I think she might also be an Andromeda Galaxy soul, but I think you initially connected with her in Lyra.
Okay.
And then I don't think she. I don't know. I have to do her reading, but I do see that in various lifetimes you reconnected with each other. So you two kind of have this ongoing soul contract that you're both going to come together during certain lives to support one another. I don't know if she's a twin flame. She might be, because you guys have known each other for a long time.
Met each other late in life. So,
yeah.
And that's the only way it would have worked. If we met younger, it wouldn't work. So.
Yeah, my husband and I met later in life too. And I'm kind of, sometimes I think, oh, it would have been great if we were, young, but I don't think it would have worked out. Because I don't think he was mature enough, and I definitely wasn't mature enough. Yeah. I think sometimes we have to learn certain life lessons to appreciate what we have, right? So I do see that she was in Pleiades, she was in Sirius with you, maybe Andromeda. And I wouldn't say every single life, but in certain lifetimes you two have gotten together. And I do think that when you went through the Syrian mystery schools, I think she was there with you. She went through them too. And you both decided together that you were going to tackle Earth. And you both knew it was going to be a multi-lifetime project. You were going to be on Earth for a while, and it wasn't going to be easy. Atlantis was a huge disappointment. Egypt wasn't so much. I'm seeing that you did some engineering work. You helped build some of the big monuments that were in Egypt. And I think you were able to develop or share some technology that you were used to use in other star systems. And you were recreating it in Egypt. And a lot of it was sound frequency. So I think in a way you're trying to push evolution forward on planet Earth. I think a lot of us did that in our initial lives. Either that or we were just trying to experience what it was like being human, Earth human. Because being Earth human is kind of different than being human in Sirius or being human in Pleiades, okay? Yeah, I do see various lifetimes. I think you had lifetimes in almost every continent.
Okay.
I'm seeing Europe. I'm seeing Africa. I'm seeing Asia. Um, Tibet.
That makes sense.
I mean, you just almost North America, South America. Um, the only areas I don't see are kind of Pacific Rim. You didn't have a Lemurian life, and I don't think there was much for you to do in the Pacific Rim. Not that you're not aligned with the cultures there. I just don't think I'm just seeing mostly um, various. It was almost like you tried to have incarnations in major civilizations.
Okay. I do have a feeling that there was a lot of lives in India too.
Yeah, I do pick up India, Tibet, Rome, UK. Uh, let me see where else. China, Japan.
How about early Earth before?
Yeah, that was. I think used to visit early Earth as Sirian.
Oh, okay.
Um, so I don't think you had incarnations before Atlantis, but I think you visited Earth as a Sirian visitor. The Sirians were visiting Earth a lot. I mean, a lot. They were the first. I think they were probably the first star race that, or one of the very first star races that visited Earth. And the Syrians had kind of a scientific mind, kind of messing around with genetics. And the Syrians also had a big influence on, Earth human genetics. So I always kind of thought it was interesting how we had, Neanderthal man, and then we had Cro-Magnon man, and then all of a sudden there was Homo sapiens. Now, how do we evolve that quickly?
Scientists.
Yeah, because we had extraterrestrials that were kind of messing around with the genetics. So and there were and, a lot of Syrian geneticists were inserting their own DNA into the human the Earth human form. So that's why I say a lot of us have Syrian DNA. Let me see. Yeah, I kind of see lifetimes where I do think your secondary skill set is healing. Okay, that was something you picked up in Sirius. Through your time in the Syrian mystery schools. The biggest thing they taught there was different healing modalities. So I think a lot of us light workers and star seeds, we all have varying levels of healing abilities.
Right.
Yeah.
What type of healing techniques did they use?
Most Syrians were mostly more physically oriented with their healing practices. So a lot of Syrian modalities involved Reiki, massage therapy, working with crystals, working with meridians, especially with acupuncture and acupressure. Sound frequency was also developed in Sirius. Herbology, working with herbs. So a lot of what we call alternative healing here on Earth actually originated from Sirius. I do get some Syrian starseeds that are very good with energy healing, particularly in helping physical symptoms. This is why you see a lot of, Syrian starseeds gravitate towards nursing and medicine as career fields because they're all about being of service. And, so they're very smart people. They were a smart star race. Actually, I think all of them were, to varying levels. Yeah.
It's kind of interesting. I work IT, but most of the places I've worked in were like healthcare or hospitals.
Mm-hmm. So it's almost like you're combining your Andromeda training with your Sirian training. Yeah. Yeah, the Pleiades, I think they had an influence on you too. Maybe not as big as Sirius did, because Sirius was so different. It was really different from Andromeda. I do think you have a core essence of Andromeda, though. I think that's, Andromeda Galaxy at least. That's your core soul essence, but you kind of have overlays of different star systems because you've had incarnations in those systems. Let's see how we're doing on time. Was there any questions or anything that I can help you answer that we haven't talked about yet?
Well, the thing is that I actually do feel like I did have some lifetimes in Orion, because I have this affinity with the Black Lake.
Okay.
It always comes up.
Okay.
So.
You might have done some work in Orion as an Andromedan. The Andromedans were very involved in assisting the Black League. A lot of people don't know that.
Okay. Because there's a lot of stuff when I go back in my own internal healing that those issues come up.
It was probably a culture shock for you to be in Orion, coming from Andromeda.
Right. Because, and also face to face with the reptilians.
Oh yeah. Oh, I mean, because you dealt with reptilians in Lyra, okay? You were face to face with them there, and then to be face to face with them again in Orion, it was just like, holy crap, here we go again, So, but I do pick up that, you worked on some very big galactic missions, and because the Black League, I think, joined the Galactic Federation, there were certain star groups that felt obligated to help them, and that was mostly the Pleiadians and the Andromedans.
Okay, that makes sense.
And to a certain extent, the Arcturians as well. But and so you did spend a lot of time in the belt stars, and sometimes when you got captured, you would get taken to Rigel. Rigel was like a pit, okay? It was just, I don't know. When I see Rigel, I see these reptilian outposts with these prisons and a lot of human trafficking that was going on. So it was so there was probably just like a culture shock having to deal with this duality consciousness that you never experienced as a soul. After Lyra at least. So, you spent lifetimes in Andromeda, and you were like, yeah, this is, Andromeda is like utopia, it was perfect, and then to get to face with, to go from Andromeda to Orion, holy crap, that must have been a shock. The work that I did, because I remember Orion too, but the star system I remember the most is Mintanka. Mintanka is that one of the belt stars.
Three belts.
Yeah, I think you were on all three.
Okay.
So that was Analam, Analtech, and Mintanka. I always remember Mintanka because it had watery planets like Sirius, but they didn't have the technology that Sirius had, so everybody got around on boats, and it was quite known for their hospitality. They were very hospitable to traveling space people. So, there were some little interesting tidbits that I picked up in the records about these different places. But yeah, no, I think you did have a big involvement with the Black League. I think you worked intelligence with them.
Okay.
So I think the Black League didn't have the technology that the Pleiadians and the Andromedans had, so you guys were helping them a lot with certain technological things that they were lacking. But the whole purpose was to try to create a unification in the Orion system, which eventually did happen. According to Alyssa and according to what I saw in the records too, it did happen fairly recently compared to Earth history. It was not, yeah, it was just within maybe this timeline. So a lot of Orion souls have come here to Earth in order to help Earth achieve the same unification. Let's see how we're doing on time. Anything else I can help you with, or?
My connection with the Zetas.
Interesting. Okay. Do you see them in like visions or dreams, or?
All the above.
All the above. Okay.
Yeah, I was part of. There must have been some agreement I made prior to coming in this lifetime. They wanting my DNA because of my ancient history with Lyra.
Oh yeah, you have if you were connected with Lyra, they always want that Lyra genetic. They don't bother Arcturians that much because our genetic line is really different, but they do love that Lyra Pleiadian genetic especially.
I was actually understanding the whole reason why through Lisa. She helped me through that.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah.
You also had some connections with them in Orion because they did have Zetas in Orion because Zeta Reticuli is not that far from the Orion system. So.
Because I know it's only a small percentage were the ones that were troubled. So,
yeah. Most of them were actually benevolent.
Right.
So I don't have a hatred for Zetas. I don't have a hatred even for reptilians because.
No, I don't either. Not anymore.
Yeah, I mean they were playing their part, and and actually quite a few of the reptilians in Sirius were actually benevolent, and they were master healers. So and I some of my clients even have reptilians as their guides, and I'm like, you know what, that's really cool, and some of them have very beautiful energy, just like.
Oh, can you see my guides?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, let me check in. You have an interesting compilation of guides. So, because you've been to a lot of different places, so you have guides from almost every place you went to. So you have some bird-looking people from Lyra. You have these great angelic looking beings that they don't even look human. They're so bright that there must be Andromeda Galaxy beings. They do have light wings. I do see that. You have the Ascended Master guides that we mentioned before, that were your teachers. Metatron is the one angel you're most connected with.
Okay.
Not so much like Raphael or Gabriel or Michael. It's Metatron, okay? Because he's even higher than those guys, okay? I do see Andromedan humanoids, some Syrian guides. I actually see an Antarian guide, which looks like a big insect, but he's kind of reddish looking because their star system is reddish orange. I just see a very interesting collection. You're a very complex soul. I think that's why you chose to incarnate as a Piscean Aquarian, because you're so complex. You have a complex set of guides too. So you have guidance from almost. You've been in almost every, I think, part of the planet. Okay, you have guides from almost every star system, at least the major ones. I also see some Zeta guides, just two of them, one female and one male. They look very similar though. They just told me they were female and male. I can't tell the difference, but they have really kindly looking eyes. Usually Zetas look kind of harsh. These guys don't look harsh. They look very kindly. And you do have a contract with them. It's going to be an ongoing one. But yeah, no, nice guides.
Were they the ones that came to me?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, because two of them came down like 3 years ago and manifested in my bedroom, and I just try to connect with them, but I think it was coming from the high dimension to the 3D. They were looking kind of wobbly.
Yeah. Yeah, they were trying their hardest to pull their vibration down, and they couldn't pull it down to your level. So it was probably like getting a transmission that was not quite, clear. But yeah, one's female and one's male.
I couldn't tell the difference either.
Yeah, you can't tell the difference. Yeah, they both look alike. But I don't know, for some reason they told me that they were two different sexes. And I said, really? You guys have different sexes? And it's like, oh yeah. I'm like, okay. Makes sense. Actually, the female one is, she's very scientific.
They're masters of time, the Zetas, so yeah, they're very scientific.
Yeah, they're very but she's more scientific than the male. The male is kind of more of a communicator. He's more of a communications expert. She's more like a scientist. So she's the one that I think mostly deals with your DNA.
Okay.
Yeah, these are really cool. I'm like getting excited because I hardly ever work with Zetas, so I get excited when I get to talk with them a little bit. Yeah, part of what you're doing. Oh, they're telling me a little bit more information. They're being quite talkative. They must trust us. You mostly, but I'm kind of like the go-between. But what they're telling me is you decided this was a contract that you did in between this life and the previous life, that you wanted to donate some of your DNA to develop a new human race of people called the Essassani.
Okay.
So the Essassani are a blend of gray alien and human genetics, Earth human genetics. And this was going to help develop humans to be able to, I think, integrate better into higher dimensional energies. Because
yeah, I've heard Bashar, Daryl Anka, who actually been chailing them for a
oh yeah, absolutely, yeah, I'm a big fan of his too. Yeah. Yeah.
Resonates deep with me.
Yeah, it was kind of like, and there's another race of people called the Yael. I think that's what they're called.
Well, the children.
Yeah, the children. I think some of your genetics is being donated to that project as well. Yeah, you have kind of interesting, very far-reaching genetics that transcends quite a few different star systems. So it's so I think they found your genetics quite interesting.
Okay. Very interesting.
Yeah, it's very cool. Unfortunately, we are at the end of our time. This was a very fascinating reading. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to connect with you. I'm just going to do a closing prayer and then we'll shut down your records. I would like to thank the Masters, teachers, and loved ones for their love and compassion. I would like to thank the Lords of the Akashic Records for their point of view. And I would like to thank the Holy Spirit of Light for all knowledge and healing. The records are now closed. Amen. The records are now closed. Amen. The records are now closed. Amen. Your energy goes with you and my energy stays with me.